All right, y'all. Shalom, shalom, shalom. It's Michael Israel, and you're watching Spiritual Combat. Today, what we are talking about is the inner wall. What stops you from looking within? Okay. Um, this is, like I talk about, like this is one of those things. The nucleus, the essence of spiritual growth and development. The essence of working your salvation out with fear and trembling. If you're not aware of what you got to work on, how you gonna work it out? It's basic. You know what I'm saying? It's very basic. So what we're gonna do, um, this is gonna kind of be a series, and basically this series, we're going to be exploring the the walls and defense mechanisms that prevent us from being able to honestly see and embrace our true self, like what's really going on. What do I mean true self? Because a lot of people have a this self image and this way they see themselves, and the way it becomes, there's certain things we become blind to, um, due to different factors and things that occur in life. We become blind or twist our perception of how we are. We ignore things about ourselves, overly focus on other things about ourselves. So we have kind of a skewed, blurry self image. It's like that mirror, those weird mirrors they have that are curved. And, you know, you look at yourself in it and you're all distorted and stuff like that, you know. Um, and, I remember I used to see in the cartoons somebody would actually be all distorted in real life. They were all distorted and weird looking, but when they stood in the mirror, they looked perfect. But it was the mirror that was actually flawed. The mirror they were looking in wasn't an accurate rendition. So I know sometimes you'd see somebody would be real overweight, but then they'd look in the mirror and the mirror would distort them into looking, perfect. And this is the way these are the lenses we look at ourselves in sometimes. Sometimes the glasses aren't correct and we're not seeing stuff right. So we have to adjust that prescription and stuff like that. And what is that prescription? What adjusts that prescription? The word. The word does. So what we're going to do, we're going to go through this. It's going to be a series because, like I said in past shows, I said I was going to do this show. In the last couple shows, I've actually mentioned it. The thing is, one of the things I said in there is there's a myriad of ways and mechanisms that prevent us from taking a true, good, honest, hard look at ourselves. So we're going to kind of go through those and go through the mechanism of how these things work. So yeah. So let me now, as far as what we're not going to get into is how to actually, the process of actually, taking the journey inwards and looking within. I already covered that in a series. This is focusing on what prevents people from embarking on the journey, you know. And in that, it causes them to be stagnant. And what do I mean stagnant? What are the signs of stagnation? The repeating the same negative behaviors over and over again. You know what I'm saying? Um, you know, as a head of assembly, you know, you'll see people, you just endlessly rebuke them about the same stuff over and over again to no avail over the course of days, weeks, months, years with an S. Okay? As opposed to other people, you'll give them a couple nudges, give them a couple rebukes, and next thing you know, they're shaking and moving, and the thing's never visited again. You know, um, or even, you know, you see a lot of saints, man. They come in, they a lot. The bulk of saints, like when they got something going on, nothing even needs to be brought up. They just self correct. You know, they self correct, and it's not even a thing. And you know, you learn as a brother, uh, you know, particularly with the brothers who are serious about the walk, you really don't gotta say anything. You know what I'm saying? Um, Brothers sincere, they're looking within. When your vision is pointed within this, there's really not a need. You're not gonna be one of those brothers who are burdened and just getting endlessly rebuked. It's just there's people, and it could be everybody in certain areas of their life. You have certain areas of their life where you just it's hard to look within. There's some people, man, they just can't look within at all. And when I talk about looking within, it keeps going to that Bible verse. AJ, I'm gonna pull it up. AJ. Okay, it's 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 5, and it talks about casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalt itself against the knowledge of Yah, and bringing into captivity every thought into the obedience of Christ. Okay, so that and reading that verse a key verse because it's showing you there's a war going on up here with your thoughts, you know, and bringing them into alignment with the word. Okay, um, and it's an intense battle. It's an ongoing battle, and you know the only way you're gonna battle it is with the word. But if you don't even know where the battle's going on at, and you're shooting here and looking here, and the enemy's behind you, you see what I'm saying? And that's an analogy with a lot of, you know, what I've seen with a lot of saints coming into this who lose the war or lose the battle. They're focusing this way and the enemy's behind them, and you're sitting there telling them the enemy is over here, the enemy's behind you, and they're steadily looking here trying to fight you, thinking you're the enemy because you're yelling at them, trying to tell them, hey, turn around, the enemy's behind you, and they're arguing with you. Why are you yelling at me? Stop yelling. Like, the enemy's behind you. You got to turn around and shoot there. And literally, that is the dichotomy of the inner wall. What stops you from looking within? That inner wall that stops you from looking within. Now check this out. Let me read this to you. There's a little saying here. Um, let me see. It's here somewhere. I read it this morning. Let me see. Set up. Nope, can't find it. But yeah. Okay, so yeah, I was trying to find that thing, but I can't find it. There's a little statement. It was pretty good too. Um, if I find it, I'll let y'all know for sure. But yeah, this is the nucleus of the problem of you know people being externally focused, looking outwardly, and that that saying that I was looking for basically says um, things don't change until you change. When you change, everything changes. Okay, for you. So when you change, everything changes for you. Another way of saying is the way to bring the most change is to change yourself, and then everything else will change. Um, that they say, hey, you can't change people, but you can change yourself. And then when you change yourself, you'll change the people you're around. Your environment will change. So it's key to look within and to develop this habit of, hey, when there's a problem, learn to look within, because there you're going to find your answer. And that makes no sense to your carnal nature, to that your flesh, where it's just geared up to, it's just locked in and focused outwardly. It's like having a turret gun or whatever. It only swings 45 degrees, but it's mounted that way. It's mounted that way, but the enemy's behind you. You see what I'm saying? So that's the equivalent of what's going on. You know what I mean? So let's get in. We're going to get into the lesson here. And I'm going to pull up some notes so y'all can follow along. So you give me a sec, I'm going to put it up here. All right. So here are the notes, and this is what we're talking about, y'all. What we're talking about is avoiding the journey inwards. Or, like our title says, the inner wall. What stops you from looking within? Okay? And it's look, let me say this like I always try to say this. It's not comfortable. It's not easy. It can be difficult. It can be challenging to look, especially initially, to look at yourself. Eventually, it becomes second nature. It becomes the way you're focused. And it's literally like you've been sitting like this for a while, facing this way, looking for the enemy, and somebody's telling you, hey, you done got all dug in and comfortable and place your weapon properly, and you've set your foxhole up real comfortably, so and everything is oriented and you're nice and comfortable there looking this way, and somebody's telling you no, the enemy's over there, and you're arguing with them because you didn't set everything up to face this way, and they're telling you no, he's going to come from that way, and there's no way you're going to be able to defend yourself if you don't look this way. So you got to pick everything up and inconvenience yourself and go through this discomfort to start looking this way. Okay? So literally that's the analogy of what happens. And when you tell people that and you begin to show people this, if they don't have ears to hear and eyes to see, they're going to fight it. And over time, I've seen, I've learned, hey, when you see that resistance, close the door, close that door, shut that door, and move on. And so you can have, like me, I can have peace in my life, and those individuals, they're dead set on facing that way. Let them face that way. When the enemy starts firing on them, hopefully they'll realize that, hey, they need to turn around and face that way. You know what I mean? But we're talking about avoiding the journey inwards. And what we start out with here is it says intense or massive trauma can lead to a pervasive pattern of avoidance, causing the individuals to shun even healthy or beneficial forms of discomfort as a means of emotional self-protection. So what it's saying there is, and I'll make this a little bigger so y'all can see this, because I'm not sure. Okay. So what it's saying there is, traumas in your life, things that happen to you, can cause an avoidance pattern. It's almost like a protection mechanism. It's almost like going in your shell. You know what I'm saying? Where any form of discomfort is pushed away. You see a lot of coping mechanisms with this stuff. You see some people, they will cope with it by avoidance mechanisms, like we're going to cover in today's show. Again, remember, this is a series. This is part 1 of the series. You'll see other people cope with it with substances, whether it's illegal substances, so substance abuse, whether it's legal substances like food, whether it's media substances like watching certain things, escapism. You see a lot of people who get into anime function like this. Okay? There's a myriad of mechanisms and tools and ways people avoid true, meaningful spiritual growth and development. And step 1 is identifying, hey, I think I'm operating in this. That's step 1. Step 2 is this right here, is to do Philippians chapter 4, verse 6, and do what it says. And it says, be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto Yah. Okay? So, what it also says in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 18, praying always with all prayer and supplication in the Spirit, and watching thereunto with all perseverance and supplication for all saints. Okay? So what we're talking about is step one is praying and supplication. Okay? And defining that word supplication, I got a couple definitions to really drive it in what this what that word means. Okay? And supplication, what it means is uh supplication is a humble and earnest request, often for help or a favor made to someone in authority or to a divine being. So to the Most High, because the word is telling you to pray to the Most High. It is a type of prayer or in entreaty that is more serious than a simple request, involving a sense of desperation, humility, or fervent need. Okay? And so here's another definition. It says the action of asking or begging for something, look, earnestly and humbly. And what does earnestly mean? With sincere and intense conviction, seriously. So just in doing step one, it's it's obvious that you have to want it. You have to actually want to change. And this is why, I've learned over the years, more recently than, over the last year or two than any, that, hey, if people, like, don't push people into this. Don't go back and forth. I'll tell people, hey, the enemy's over there and you're facing this way. And I'll tell people that. And if it's met with a bunch of excuses and different mechanisms of avoidance, I'll tell them again out of love. And I might tell them a bunch of times, out of love, loving them. But what I've learned is, hey, I got to love the Most High, His Word, and myself more than some people hate themselves. And tell them a couple times and do what the Word says and just leave them be. And be comfortable. Learn to be content with that. Because if I overstep that, I'm in error. I'm messing up. On top of that, I'm messing up my peace. And on top of that, I'm hindering their growth and development because, look, some people just have to learn the hard way. So, truly, if people, I found people who really are here to grow and develop, they're going to go down this thing. This thing is just reaffirming and confirming where they're at, what they've done. In fact, when the Most High is really drawing you, He's dealing with your spirit. These verses I'm reading to you, when I was struggling with something, I was wrestling with something that I wanted to get off me, I didn't even know about these Bible verses. It was only years later I read over these verses and I was like, wow, that's what I was led to do by the Spirit. I was led to do all that by the Spirit, to earnestly and desperately and with sincere and intense conviction seriously ask Yah to pull me out of this thing that this particular area I'm wrestling with. You know what I'm saying? And sure enough, He did. And he leads you and He guides you through circumstances and situations. And He puts you in a place where, again, this is why I just keep hitting on that Joshua chapter 1 where it says, look, He's going to give you the blessing. He's going to give you that. But you're going to have to fight for it. And people ain't up to fighting. People are not up to fighting. Okay? They're not up for the fight. And look, you see the name of my show right up here, Spiritual Combat. That's what it's about. It's about warfare. It's about fighting. You have to fight for this. Endure hardness as a good soldier. You know? It's all through the book. So, step one, right there, that's the huge step. Or I'm sorry, step two. Because step one is actually recognizing, hey, I am externally focused. I do avoid looking within. And we're going to go in. Let me scroll down a little more. We're going to get into the mechanisms of growth avoidance. These are the mechanisms that cause you to be externally focused. So as we read through these, you're going to realize that, hey, I am operating in that. And if you have a desire to come up out of it, you're going to take it to the Father humbly, sincerely, intensely, with conviction, and with humility. You know what I'm saying? So these are the mechanisms to growth avoidance. These are the walls to true spiritual growth and development. And we just got to sit here because so many people just stuck at these walls, and they operate in a spirit of religiosity, in a spirit of deception, deceiving themselves. And you're not going to go anywhere unless you could get past this big obstacle. Okay? So these are some of the mechanisms that people operate in where they avoid growth and development. Blame shifting. They externalize fault by accusing others, effectively avoiding personal responsibility for their mistakes or behaviors. Rationalization. They construct seemingly logical but false excuses to justify poor choices, thereby sidestepping the need for change. Okay? Intellectualization. They analyze situations in a detached, overly abstract manner to avoid confronting the uncomfortable underlying emotions. So it's almost like a type of rationalization, but they intellectualize it. Okay? Denial. They refuse to acknowledge an obvious, painful truth or reality, shielding themselves from necessary self-correction. Okay? So they just deny. It's like, it ain't nothing. And just avoid, literally, just like that physical look, it ain't nothing. It literally looks like that in the spiritual, in the mental. Projection. They attribute their own unacceptable feelings or flaws onto another person, diverting attention from their own issues. Minimalization. It's almost like denial to a degree. They trivialize or downplay the significance of their actions or behaviors to avoid feeling the need for serious effort, to avoid that uncomfortable feeling. And again, the layer below this layer is going to be pride, which that's going to be the next one in the series. So minimalization, passive aggression. They express hostility indirectly through non-confrontational resistance, stonewalling, direct accountability. Okay? So all these, they don't really need to be elaborated on. If you need me to elaborate on them, let me know in the comments. So passive aggression, okay? Playing the victim. They present themselves as helpless or injured, soliciting sympathy and deflecting constructive criticism. And you'll see people, man, who've been operating in this for a long time. They'll bounce around in these when confronted. You'll see them up there, you know. Red herring, deflection. They introduce irrelevant topics into a conversation to distract from the core issue that requires their attention. Again, you'll see people, they will move around in between these, and it can be confusing confronting them if you're not aware of the mechanisms of growth avoidance. Okay? It could be confusing trying to rebuke or correct or deal with somebody on who operates in this. Overcomplicating, fawning, okay? They overly agree to a request but covertly sabotage follow through, using submission to avoid real commitment. So they'll be like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I got you. And then they'll act like they're going to do whatever they said they were going to do, and then they'll sabotage it. Okay? They'll undermine it somehow to do what we said right here at the top of it, to avoid growth and development. Why? Because it's painful. You see what I'm saying? So now let me read over something for you real quick. Let me see. So basically, like I said on that last one, because it to a degree it can kind of be, the way I wrote it out, it can be a little confusing, and to break it down a little clearer, it's covert sabotage. Once the pressure is off, the commitment is not abandoned outright, but slowly neglected, killed through inaction. You see what I'm saying? That's the type of person I say they go along to get along. And you'll see all these operating. You might see them in yourself. You might see them in people around you. And at the end of the day, man, if people don't want to change, you can't make them, you know? And it's so simple to hear, but, you know, if you're caught up in it, if it's yourself, if it's someone else, it can be difficult. So what we got to do is, with ourselves, we have to look and see this stuff operating in us with those brothers and sisters around us. Everybody has a bunch of issues they got to work through. You know, all the brothers and sisters around me, they have issues they got to work through. I don't put any pressure on anybody to change anything unless, because everybody's like, yes, you do. Unless it's something that's critical that can affect, you know, the brothers and sisters around you and everything like that. Then I got to get involved. Like, I can tell you, diet and health, that's a big one. You know, we've had people in the past that just had careless behaviors that could and had in the past harmed others. And we, like I said, I talk about it, man. We had an individual, man. He had a careless mindset and everything, and he was endlessly rebuked about it. And he ended up losing his life because of that, because of an accident he got in, and You know, and it's nothing but the Most High, because, man, when the Most High deal with people, the message comes across clear. There ain't no gray area, ain't no confusion on it at all. It's, yeah, you know. So, and like I said, one of the main ways I've seen the Most High communicate is through situations and circumstances. You know what I mean? But anyway, y'all, I appreciate all y'all tuning in. I wanted to just come in, drop that on you. Like I said, it's going to be a series. It's looking like part 2 of this series is going to be on pride. And I want to show you one more thing, because I talked about this at the beginning of the show. And I want to show you this resource, and that is because what we're talking about is the inner walls. What stops you from looking within? Okay, that's what we talk about in this show, and that's what we're going to be talking about in this series. Okay, however, I have a whole series of taking the journey inwards. It's a whole series I did a year ago, literally almost a year to the date, to this day, and it's called The Journey Inwards, and it's right there. It's on this channel, on the Spiritual Combat YouTube channel. And what I wrote here in the description for this series encourages us to look within or at ourselves to make sure we are in alignment with the Word. It also explains in simple terms how to look within and work your salvation out with fear and trembling. Okay? So this series gets granular about looking within and analyzing yourself and seeing what you have going on within yourself. And like I said, the number one thing that I would tell y'all, don't be discouraged. Endure hardness. Like, don't get discouraged. Initially, you're not going to be getting anywhere with any of this stuff. But you got to stay encouraged. You got to stay locked in. You have to make a commitment to consistency. Okay? You got to be strong and of good courage. Don't let the word depart out of your mouth. Stay locked in. You see what I'm saying? And it'll happen. Watch these videos. I have plenty. This is one of the main things I talk about. You know what I'm saying? On this channel. Okay? So, anyway, y'all. With that said, I appreciate all y'all tuning in. I'm Michael Israel. You're watching Spiritual Combat. And shalom, shalom.